The daughter is using dark magic and thus hurting her own guards. The hero could deal with the guards easily, but here was a flying monster mage. You had to be careful. The dark mage started to attack the hero, but he didn't even realize that the hero was deliberately luring his attacks in his direction so that he would miss. The attack went directly into the sarcophagus. Magic level 5 was destroyed. The mage screwed up. The hero moved forward slightly, thus scattering the guards. He stopped. So, he said, Teresa will be done soon too. Only you, the skeleton, are left. But what is it? Someone chopped a skeleton in half. I finally found you, some guy said as he stepped his foot on the skeleton's head, thus destroying it. Someone who reads all the monster's movements like an open book. I was sure you'd come. Long time no see, the guy said, pointing his sword at the hero. But the hero didn't even realize who was standing in front of him. You don't recognize me. The hero applied the eye of truth to find out who was in front of him, and the player's status was revealed in front of him. Yang Yusong believes that he is the best swordsman. Defeat him in a sword battle by breaking his self-confidence. The hero also noticed that the guy is holding an iron sword from the Qianlong dynasty. If he took it, back when the tower challenge became a virtual game, that guy lost to me once. His bootstrap got short-circuited, and time after time he wanted to fight me. Wherever I was, he challenged me again and again. This battle-hungry warrior, you're the damn stalker who was chasing me. The guy understood why he didn't recognize me. The game had become real, and the character had changed. That's why he reacted the way he did when he saw me. He's underestimating me, the guy decided. The character remembered him back at the museum. Leave me alone. The hero said, you're a pain in the ass, constantly challenging me to fights just to play. This time will be different, said the guy standing in front of the flushed hero. We're at the beginning now, so you won't have an advantage, the hero decided. Since he wants to fight so badly, there's no point in discouraging him. But can you handle it? The hero asked. My partner won't just stand by and watch. She'll smash him like snot on a tree, he added. That streak, Teresa, that's an interesting partner you have, said the guy. She won't be able to stop us. Jiang Xian applied a level 5 field selection. Taking his sword, he slammed it into the ground. At this time, our hero was standing near the sarcophagus, and he found what he came for. From a slit in the sarcophagus he pulled out a small ball. The space from the technique started to change, and Teresa, who was looking at it, heard only 2 words from our hero. We will meet again. A moment and they disappeared. All that was left of them was a bright light that flew upwards. Teresa didn't realize what was happening and stood there confused, and lo and behold, they appeared in a different place. The guy who challenged our hero to a duel pronounced that no one else would stop them. I am the world's greatest swordsman. I challenge you to a fight. He activated the kiting technique. It was a level 5 duel. Because of her, all of his stats were increased by 10%, but his hero stats were conversely reduced by 10%. His special skills, field selection, and dueling had weakened him. The situation for the hero became extremely disadvantageous. However, special conditions for skill synthesis appeared. Simply put, when copying is not advantageous, the conditions are adjusted to the changing situation. Copying is possible after a skill is obtained. Thus, our hero has copied the opponent's ability, Class C Sword Song. The swordsman's skills are enhanced by 200%, and the hero's body begins to use sword fighting techniques, which also greatly enhances his perception. The enemy began to advance, shouting, "You're ignoring me again. Don't melt or I'll kill you in one hit." The hero meanwhile pulled out his dagger and began to fend off the enemy's attacks. The opponent didn't understand and asked, "What are you counting on? You're fighting at a medium distance after all. Why are you only using your dagger?" But the hero thought that it would be enough. After all, sword fighting was also interesting. After saying that, the guy started going crazy, shouting the same thing, "You're underestimating me." With that, he activated another skill, the level 6 Sword Soul. The guy became more than a little angry and started attacking the hero with sword streams. "Aren't you trying too hard, using higher techniques to fight a newcomer?" asked the hero to that scary guy. But that made it even more infuriating. "It's you, newbie, what kind of nonsense are you talking about?" Began to stupidly yell like a slashing. Funny moment. The hero turned his attention to his sword and noticed that if he continued to parry his attacks, the dagger would be finished. That meant it was time to use it, a skill that could counter the sword. He began to combine the sword song and the demon soul. With a movement of his hand, he performed an out-of-rank synthesis, combining the abilities sword song and demon soul. Oh, and how hot it became. The enemy couldn't look in the hero's direction because of the bright light coming from the blade. The hero had gotten a little overzealous and gained a unique C-class ability. It was like the graveyard of swords. The hero's skills became 500% stronger. The body now only used the most effective sword techniques, and perception was at its maximum. One of the abilities required to obtain the title of Demonic Swordsman. The ability that the hero received gives out barely a tenth of the total power. He realized that he doesn't have enough mana to control this power. The hero's next goal would be to increase its supply properly. The enemy was dumbfounded at how powerful it was. He chose the most convenient battlefield for him. And yes, he tries not to fight at close range. However, why couldn't he defeat him now? That was the only thing that was of interest. What would be the opponent's next move? 1-1, 1-1, both in and out of the game. He was doing everything to win. The hero developed strategies that were supposed to help him. But nothing worked. Time after sitting in his apartment and looking at the wall with posters and ropes, he kept drawing and writing out what move he would use. Asked many questions, grumbled, but the bottom line didn't change. Why can't he top it? I will not accept this. Our hero's opponents started attacking more and more, but he didn't expect the hero to be able to parry his attacks. Although with the big difference in level, the hero was many steps above his opponent. He had already fought opponents that far surpassed his opponent in strength, but now he was bored with this battle due to the fact that he was faster than a bullet. The hero moved behind his opponent's back. Swinging his dagger, the opponent wanted to block the attack, but no such luck. His sword instantly flew further away, and his opponent fell to the ground with a great crash. Our hero defeated him again. He couldn't even remember how many times it was, but his opponent counted each defeat. 138 times he lost. This battle was the 138th. Kill me, he said, but the hero didn't want to do it. Then there will be a 139th victory in the future, he said. You know yourself that the Tower of Trials is no joke. Even the strongest nerds sometimes die here by carelessness. Life is hard, any way you look at it. But we need strong players, and persistent ones like you even more so, the hero said and held out his hand to his opponent. The guy sitting on his knees couldn't understand what the hero was saying about him and whether he was a strong player. But the hero started trying to befriend his attacker for a reason. He needed another 60 days to copy the player's abilities once more. Why would he waste his energy looking for him when he can make sure the target to copy is always nearby? And the hero activates the ability to communicate. The guy, as he got up, immediately turned around and started walking away. In response, the hero started saying that he admits defeat this time, but wants the guy to remember that next time, the outcome will be different. I'll wait with a smile, the hero replied. The effect of the battlefield selection skill was cancelled. By the way, I still don't know your name, do I? The guy said to the hero. And why would you? Replied the hero. But the lad did not like that answer, and to what was said he said, then I'll call you what I used to call you. Like before. No, don't you dare. Began to shout at the hero. Stinky, his in-game nickname had been misinterpreted before. Teresa, hearing this, smiled. But the hero didn't really like it, so he decided to tell him his name after all. The squad leader heard one of his soldiers start to say that the scanning artifact had detected something unknown. And although he was sure that there shouldn't be anything left after they had destroyed all the monsters, they started to see an object moving towards them. As soon as they raised their heads, they saw an iron golem with a strange creature sitting on its shoulder. The squad leader, as soon as he looked at it, realized what the image was. It was a supreme vampire who descended from the goblin's shoulder and began to worship them, thus welcoming the dear guests who had come to their home. After he greeted the players, he began to say that his name was Baluz, and he was accompanying the owner of these ruins, Lord, one of the blood relatives. The boys immediately bared their blades and pinned the vampire against the wall. Why did you come here? They asked. You didn't just decide to meet us, did you? The leader of the group asked. The vampire didn't like that and immediately surrounded me. What's with the ill-manneredness? He said. He arrived at them with a suggestion. Either you follow me without bickering, or half of you will come with me and I will eat the rest. At this moment, he activated his blood plague skill. What's wrong with my body? Shouted the leader of the guys. The vampire was quite strong. With a smile on his face and red eyes, he captured everyone around him. Here we are shown another squad that was in another building. Tony was sitting and Teresa was using her level 5 Saint's power skill. With the ice tier, she could enhance magic when absorbed, but if she didn't apply purification, she could seriously injure or harm players. Obtained along with the demon's soul, the ice tier is quoted and cannot be used immediately after receiving it. But thanks to Teresa's holy power, our hero had already gotten 12 stats, and everything worked out. Our hero was satisfied. After the invitation from the master of the abode, Teresa and the hero received the description. If you want to save the members of your group, go to the farthest room. Upon accepting the invitation, all monsters will deactivate. Teresa couldn't believe that the entire squad had been taken hostage. It's mind-boggling to kidnap an entire group. Teresa sprang into action. If she could save even one person, she could not hesitate. Teresa wondered, would they be able to defeat the Lord, or would they simply fall into a prepared trap? Without the raid team, it would be impossible for them to defeat the Lord. Teresa regretted leaving them behind. What would have happened if I had stayed with them then, she thought. She had joined the squad as a paladin. She just wanted to protect the players, but as it was, she had made the wrong choice. The swordsman who was standing to the side had seen all of this too, but it had nothing to do with him. So he was about to go, but before leaving, he said a few words to Teresa. If you're having a hard time making a decision, then think about what I'm going to tell you. That man doesn't have an ounce of honor. He's simply selfish. He can't even recognize his opponent. That's why I hate him so much. But I can guarantee you, if anyone can defeat the Lord, it's him. I've told you everything. Now I'm leaving and you don't die out there. Teresa immediately smiled. She appreciated that swordsman's advice. She approached our hero and said she would accept an invitation from him. But the hero questioned, will she overpower him? His services cost a great deal. But she didn't care. She was willing to pay everything she had just to save the squad. Our hero was in agreement. The quest was accepted, and the monsters that were on their way to the boss room went into hibernation. They approached the boss room, and there was such a volume of mana that Teresa felt uneasy. But the hero said that she shouldn't be scared. After that, they got a glimpse of the enemy. It's not always the strongest wins the battle. Teresa asked the hero if he had a plan, and heard that he knew what to do, no matter how it happened. She must trust and believe in him. They entered the Lord's room, where they saw many vampires standing in a circle, with Lord Alice Vaughn sitting on a throne at the very end. Here we are at last, she said. I was so tired of waiting for you. The hero immediately asked if the people she had kidnapped were alive. With a snap of her fingers, she said, see for yourself. A squad appeared, sitting tied up and with their eyes closed. The hero looked at them and used his abilities, thereby realizing that it was the leader who would awaken the guards. Lord began to say that she invited the hero to visit her because of the smell that came from him. The sweetness she felt for the first time was the smell of his blood, which couldn't be compared to the smell of other people. It was a very sweet smell that turned her on. The hero is a bit dumbfounded as to why she is talking about the smell of blood. After all, there was never anything like that before when he was here. Are you alarmed? Asked the Lord to our hero, to which she replied, how can a vampire talking about blood be calm after hearing that? The Lord began to reassure the hero not to worry and told him that she would enjoy him slowly. He would live for at least 60 more years, which meant she would be able to use it for a long time. The hero thanked her for her concern, but said he didn't want to live like he was an expensive lunch. With a quick movement, the Lord struck a blow that made the hero's cheek bleed. Your opinion doesn't matter, she replied. You just don't have a choice. No one gave you a choice, she repeated. Are you okay? Teresa asked. The hero was scared. The hero began to explain that he wasn't just talking. He's willing to give the Lord something on sweet blood. Teresa didn't realize what the hero was doing. The Lord smiled and said that no matter what he sucked up, nothing is more important to them than blood, and no matter what he offers, her opinion won't change. You confidently replied with a snide smile. Hero, even if I offer you freedom. The vampires that were in the audience started screaming in one voice from hearing that. How dare he say that? Yes, we'll tear you to pieces, you little bug. They were ready to attack the hero, but the Lord stopped them and told the hero that he had better back up his words with deeds before she finally finished him off. The hero began to explain that if he wasn't responsible for his words, he simply wouldn't have come here. Lord began to listen to his words and decided to hear him out after all. My name is Kong Jin Hek, the hero said, and as the representative of the mains, I swear that I will set you free. The mains were those who turned their backs on the humans because of money, revenge, and personal beliefs. They prevented players from climbing the tower and helped the monsters in the mazes and ruins. The Lord was interested. He had heard of them. And when he saw our hero putting on his mask, he asked, you mean you are one of them? The hero replied that he had made the connection to the temple on the 27th floor and that it was here, and knew how to cheat the barrier that covered the ruins. All of this was told to him there in the temple. Teresa couldn't believe her ears, what that could mean, and more importantly, why he said he was a main and why everyone got excited when they heard about the temple. The Lord immediately replied, since you know about the temple, then it's not a bluff. The hero thought she believed him. She rose abruptly from her throne, and the blood that was at her feet began to rise with her. What does it matter if you're a main or not? For centuries, they hire vampires have remained locked up here, so it's all just talk. And since she doesn't like talkers, he'll have to die. The Lord started to activate the blood orb skill. She decided to finish off the hero with the words, "Your blood smelled so sweet. Sorry about that. Die." 1,000 bloody swords started flying towards the hero who was standing in front of her. But suddenly Teresa appeared and activated the power of a saint, thus creating a barrier. Teresa held back the Lord's attack and ordered the hero not to come out. She believed her barrier would hold, but the bloody pikes and swords were very much in evidence. Teresa was putting her full weight against the Lord's usual attack. The Lord was starting to get angry. She hated everything holy. That's when she decided to activate the Blood Blast skill, thereby destroying them in one blow. Teresa didn't know how long she would last. The Lord's usual attacks were strong, but she believed it was a stab in the back. Gene Hack shouted she. Our hero stabbed her through with his dagger. The Lord, seeing this, smirked. The hero stood next to Teresa, who was lying on the floor bleeding. If I prove to you that this is simply not a bluff, will you believe me? How interesting, said the Lord. You betrayed a comrade who protected you. But that is not enough. If you prove it with something else, then perhaps I'll believe you. Teresa, bleeding, took hold of his leg and said her last words. We promise to save the squad members. Is this your plan? With that, the hero swung his dagger and finished Teresa off. The Lord was ecstatic at what he saw. Not bad, human, she said. Now I realize you're on my side. I trust you. Now you have a chance to explain yourself, said the hero, and began to explain, which would fool the barrier that was preventing them. He prepared a special spell. What I hold in my hands is the Brahma ring, and if we place your soul in this ring, we can cheat the barrier for a little while. Lord didn't understand. This was the first time she had heard of sealing a soul. The reason why the hero gave up all experience points and stayed at level 1 was because the soul traveling skill could only be activated by a level 1 player. The hero had traveled such a long way to be here, and to do this, he started to activate the soul relocation magic circle. He could only seal the soul once, and the recharge of the skill was 365 days. Everything was ready. All that was left was to get the Lord's consent. The hero stood in the circle with his arms outstretched and said that if in a minute this magic circle would disappear forever, if you gave your consent, the spell would work. It was up to you to decide what you would choose. The Lord stood and turned to her loyal servant, ordering him that she didn't trust him completely yet, so if he did anything suspicious, kill him and destroy the magic circle. The Lord had one last step to make. She was reluctant to put her life in his hands, but she had lived too long in confinement. It had been over 1,000 years. If not now, she may never get out of this dungeon. The Lord asked one last time, can she trust the hero? To which she heard, if you trust me, you will not regret it. The Lord extended his hand to the hero, who bowed his head in front of her, at which point the hero specifically applied the communication skill. The target immediately showed interest in our hero. I, Alice von Ataraxia, authorized the soul transference. After her consent, the process began to take place and the Lord's soul was imprisoned in the Brahma ring. The process was complete and the Lord thought she would be uncomfortable in the ring. But it turned out to be cozy. The hero picked up the ring and was pleased that she liked her new home. Fiction's new home, she said. Immediately afterward, the ability Heaven's Protection activated and Teresa rose from the floor. Welcome back, the hero said towards Teresa. He knew of her skill that could bring back the fallen, instant death being the exception. The recharge of the skill was 240 hours. Teresa slowly got to her feet and came to her senses. With a smile on her face, she approached the hero. The hero began to turn his mask into a regular monochrome mask, as he didn't need it anymore. At this time, the Lord, who was imprisoned in the ring, began to resent. How dare he speak to her like that? Bemise, kill the vile deceiver, she shouted. Teresa had many questions, but she realized it was better to ask them later, to which the hero agreed, as now is not the time or place. Bemise sprang into action with the words, foolish humans, do you think you'll stay alive after betraying my master? He began to activate the Blood Moon skill. The hero and Teresa were in danger, you would think, but the hero activated the Fire Element skill and hit back with the same force as the enemy. The hero then asked Teresa to take care of the squad members while he dealt with the vampires. Teresa used the cross skill to free the squad that was bound by the spell. She started with the guild leader, and after she freed him, he was happy to see them. The guild head asked what was going on with the vampires, and Teresa pointed to our hero, who was dealing with them alone. Bemise attacked the hero, but couldn't understand how he was able to repel his attack. The hero explained that his magic and fire extinguished the enemy's attack. However, he did not yet realize that once their mistress, probably the guild leader, was imprisoned, the situation became more complicated. They had already lost. Enough talking, it was time to call it a day. The hero started to activate the unique ability Graveyard of Swords, but the vampires didn't want to give up. Meanwhile, Bemis activated the dark martial arts skill and replied, "Shut your mouth," he said. "You shallow blood belly. If I couldn't succeed in killing you with magic, I'll succeed with a sword." He ordered the entire ring to be smashed to free their lord, and the vampires began to, but they were so unsuccessful. They were nowhere near as strong as our hero. Meanwhile, the guild leader was standing with Teresa looking at all this and asked Teresa, "Who was this guy?" Teresa thought for a moment before answering and realized that if the character was still wearing the mask, then he didn't want to reveal his identity. She said that she met him by chance and didn't know much about him. The hero approached Teresa and heard her say that she was in pain. It was the first time she had died, so also at the hand of an ally. But they fused, and that's what matters. She thanked the hero for keeping everyone alive. The hero had saved the life of the owner of the unique ability Patronage of the Heavens, and so the conditions were met. The hero had successfully copied her ability, which meant that the divine power would allow him to escape death. Teresa started to sob, but the hero said that it ended well and there was no need to sob. She didn't know why that was, but the tears were pouring out for nothing. Teresa asked the hero, "So it turns out you knew I was going to be resurrected?" To which he abruptly turned around and walked the other way. He said he was glad she survived. The hero offered to already take the relics and get the hell out of this dungeon. But then the raid group leaders showed up and started saying that the rights to the relics from this raid belonged to the guild. The hero got a little angry and said that he saved their lives, and he is also asking for relics. But the head immediately backpedaled and said he misunderstood and would pay him for them in money or whatever. "You won't be shortchanged," he said. The hero didn't like the leader. After defeat, this leader still acts cocky, but if that's the way you want it, take it. But don't complain if the result doesn't satisfy you. The leader rejoiced and ran to the relics, and lying first was a fragment of Merlin's staff. Although the large raiding party of grooms seemed to be held hostage, the chapter thought he could regain authority by bringing in good loot. The head touched the staff and felt as if he had been electrocuted. "What is this?" he said, seeing the cross on his hand. "What curse?" replied the hero. "Though Merlin's staff is a precious relic, it bears a curse. If Alice were to disappear completely, it would be safe. However, Alice is currently trapped in the ring, a stone, with me," the head said, and held his head. Teresa, seeing this, was shocked. The hero knew what was coming next, so he took Teresa's hand and said, "Let's go to the exit already." At this time, the department head and a bunch of press stood near the exit of the dungeon and waited for the raid team of grooms that was to return. The head of the Awakened Association stood near the exit of the dungeon and said that they had received a message that something should work out. The girl standing next to him interrupted him and said that the experts had reported that the raid would last at least another 3 weeks. The boss remembered the words of the guy who said that the takeover of the ruins would be over soon. But the boss didn't tell him to believe it. Suddenly, everyone standing there saw the notification that the ruins of the abode of the fallen had been cleared. The group began to exit through the teleporter. "Oh, it's the party guild," everyone shouted. "Congratulations on clearing the ruins of the first floor." The reporters wanted to quickly learn about the strategy you used and who became the most valuable player of this raid. The raid leader, who had all the hair on his head fall out after the curse, and yes, his eyebrows fell out too. That was the laugh. Everyone wanted to know what happened back there in Nutri, right? "Gentlemen," Teresa said, "the ruins weren't cleaned up by the Sun Shanhua raid. Did the Shongold do that?" "No," she answered. "Our hero came out last and said that this person was compared almost alone, and we were in fact just watching from the sidelines." The head of the association immediately wanted to inform the leader. "Barely survived. We could have just died, but if not for that masked man, it would have been." The broken raid team was walking and thinking. The next day, the news was all about who the masked player was and where he came from because he single-handedly cleared the ruins, and all the guilds started commenting on the situation because he single-handedly cleared that dungeon. But at the same time, Gene Heck was making himself a tasty noodle, and watching the news he immediately found out that it was going to be a topic of discussion. But he had no idea that it would get so big. Delicious noodles and watching all this news, and he knew it was going to be a topic of discussion. But he didn't realize it was going to be blown out of proportion. And it's a good thing he was wearing a mask and no one recognized his face. But the only one who saw her face was Teresa, but she promised to keep it a secret. So Gene Heck decided not to worry about it. And as soon as he'd eaten the rest of the news, he decided it was time to deal with sitting in the ring. And as soon as he put the ring to his ears, he heard Alice start to tell him how dare he put her in a dark and stinking pocket because he should have known who she was well. For a second Gene Heck got bored with her talking and he started twirling the ring around in his hands, and Alice started screaming at him to calm down because she was getting dizzy. As soon as she was quiet, Gene Heck stopped twirling that ring that was on the chain and started asking her if she had come to her senses. But she, who was sitting in the ring, started telling him to put himself in her shoes, think about it, and remember that vampires never forget a grudge. However, he didn't like what she said again, and at that very moment she realized he wanted to do it again and started ordering him to stop. But Gene Heck, with a horrifying smile, began to twist once more and tell her that she still hadn't realized who was in charge. So another explanation is needed, and he started spinning this ring at an unrealistic speed, saying that this is the carousel of death. After 3 hours, he put the ring on the table and Alice started telling him to stop because she was about to die. But at that same second, Gene Heck started telling her to stop roaring and finally went outside. He started to release Brahma from the ring, and that very second she appeared in front of him. As soon as she realized this, she began to say with a smiling smile that the time had finally come and she would give him back this pain 1,000-fold. But what she didn't expect was that she was the size of a small child, and looking at herself, she couldn't realize what was going on. But Gene Heck first told her that he had only taken out and materialized a part of her, and now you could call her a mini version of Alice. Gene Heck went on to tell her that she could now only use 1% of her power, and even though he had put a restriction on it, it was still stronger than a normal vampire. But she started to sit on the floor, sobbing and saying, "What kind of life is this?" But Gene Heck started telling her not to roar, but to listen to what he said. "In ruins to me are empty words," she said. But she didn't want to hear it and started telling him to shut up, because this wasn't the kind of freedom she wanted. And Gene Heck said that he knew, for freedoms were unspeakable, and he would give her real freedom. But she didn't understand what that meant, and he went on to say that if Alice would help him, he would destroy those who had betrayed her and give her back her place as head of the Ataraxia family. And a little later, a new video was added to the honor roll, and Wright, who should have failed. However, the masked player who appeared changed the situation completely, and some viewers watched the video. Even though they already knew the result, their hands were still sweating, and some viewers were scared as he was standing alone in front of the vampires, and they lost knowledgeably from it. But some onlookers noticed that his movements and actions didn't look like a beginner, and his magic and sword techniques were of an incredible level. Our hero, who was reading all these comments, was already standing outside near a large building. Looking at this building, he began to realize that many kids, after all, had a lot of money. And, seeing such a big office, he realized that they did. And as soon as he started to put on his mask, he knew that he wasn't going to get involved in the guild's affairs or the squabbles between them, because he didn't care about them. And as soon as he put his mask on, he kicked out with his foot the door that started to fly to pieces, and he didn't want to do it. But now he had, for he knew that this guild wanted to kill him, and forgive, he wasn't going to do it. After all, for such a thing he would tear them to shreds. And just as our hero began beating up all the staff and all the guards that stood behind those broken doors, the head of the guild was sitting on the upper floors of that building. He started to greet not one of his underlings, but that he was a jerk, and made it clear to him that he should die in those ruins. And what did he do? Woke up the guards and ended up accomplishing nothing because of some asshole they can't handle. They can't be allowed to lose their reputation and maybe cease to exist altogether. The guild leader stood up from his desk and started walking towards that subordinate. He kicked him off his leg, saying that he was a lowly jerk and couldn't do anything properly. And at that same second, the two guards who were standing near the door in the guild leader's office started to hear some kind of knocking on the door. And in that same second, the door exploded from the fire flame that Gene Heck had applied. And as soon as those two guards flew aside, Gene Heck started to go inside the room and asked if he was the master of this guild. But the head at that very second started ordering his underlings to grab him. Suddenly, the guy that the head had recently beaten with his feet appeared. He realized that this was his only chance to restore his honor and his reputation in the face of the head, and he would be called Pak Ha Jen, Super Hands again. And just as he flew towards our hero with his dagger, Gene Heck suddenly took off his mask and said to that guy, "Hi." And as soon as that guy got confused, Gene Heck kicked him in the head, which made him fly into the nearest closet that stood near the wall. Suddenly, the guild leader started yelling that they lost their position in the association because of him. If you think you can just strut around here like this, you're wrong. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments below.